Okay, so 30 years after the original Nightwatch dropped, Shudder is bringing an original sequel to the platform with Nightwatch, Demons Are Forever. Nikolaj Coster-Waldau returns in his role as Martin, but can this sequel capture the same magical dread as its predecessor? 22-year-old medical student Emma has just taken a job as the night watch in the same forensic department where her parents were almost killed by the famed psychopathic police inspector Wörmer. The events led to her father Martin turning to tranquilizers to suppress the memories, and determined to investigate exactly what happened to them, Emma unintentionally reawakens a bloodthirst and ignites a violent revenge. So this is set in present day, and Martin has a daughter named Emma, who takes on a job to help pay for school and cover bills. Now surprisingly, or not so much since this is a sequel, Emma is hired on as the night watch person at the same morgue that her dad worked at when he was attending school. Killings begin to happen, mimicking those of the killer from the first movie, with all of this coming to a head when Emma accidentally sets off a string of unfortunate events. Now, I love that we have Coster-Waldau reprising his role, this time no longer the timid and wide-eyed student, but instead a struggling father who's fighting depression and loneliness. Emma, played by Fanny Leander Bornedal, is the driver for the story. Now, Bornedal is also the real-life daughter of writer-director Ole Bornedal, who also wrote and helmed the original. Emma is a great mix of both her parents, but showcases most of the tenacity and drive of her mom Kalinka from the first film. Now, Emma has a very contentious relationship with Martin, and the strain they feel, it's palpable, understandable, even somewhat relatable. It's not like she hates her father or even dislikes him. She's just taken on more of the role of parent while he deals with his depressive state, and she begins to resent that. Now, the violence that ensues, it's somewhat graphic, but much of the time the actions are obscured so that we just see the aftermath. Like someone may get their throat slashed, but while we may slightly see a hand move towards the neck, what the camera really focuses on is then all the blood spurt that just comes out all over the place. Now, I enjoyed the mystery in this sequel, but guessed the perpetrator too early on for my liking. I did waver a bit between two people, which I thought was satisfying, but I landed on the right one easier than preferred. I think a lot of it is because, for whatever reason, the storyline felt a little familiar. Now, some of that is because it draws a lot of inspiration from the first movie, but there was also something that I still haven't been able to put my finger on. It just made me think that I've watched something similar in the past. And even if the story is original and it hasn't used any help from anything other than the first film, the clues are such that the answers are way more obvious than they were the first go-round. Now, I enjoyed some of the circularity that this film shares with the first. Emma working at the morgue, seeing odd imagery, and then also trying to figure out a mystery that is affecting those close to her. It can be exciting, but it also runs the risk of being a little too repetitive if you've recently watched the first movie. For me, I watched the first one and then went right into this one, so it was very fresh in my mind as to all of the story beats. Now, this one is slightly longer than its counterpart, but unlike that one, I did begin to feel the time a little in here. There's still a good sense of urgency, thanks to that ever-encroaching threat of the killer, but some of the mysterious and dreadful magic I thought was missing. I was still engaged, just not nearly as hooked. I think that's mainly because of the familiar storyline and then the predictability of the plot. Now, the pacing for this, also, it felt rushed. I wanted to take more time with Emma, especially because she has some close friends, and their dynamic could really set up a huge sense of foreboding, especially as the killer begins to pick off people. To put characters that we're invested in into harm's way, it's an excellent story device to maintain connection with the characters. But it's not only rushed with Emma's friends. I mean, a few of the other major characters, they don't get as much development as they deserve either. And it's especially obvious when actions take place and the scenarios just feel like they came on all of a sudden, haphazardly inserted in the narrative, hoping that we're going to feel a significant connection to characters that we barely know. There are also interactions, especially where Martin is concerned, they're underdeveloped, which then makes them come across as forced and rushed. Now, I appreciate what the story was undertaking with these situations, but the depth, it just wasn't there, so the scenes became lackluster. And despite all of this, I did still enjoy a lot of the movie. I mean, it's great to watch a continuation so many layers on, especially with one of the key actors returning. But when compared to the first film, this one really is a pale copy that only begins to capture the mayhem and the unease. So overall, Nightwatch, Demons Are Forever crafts an intriguing sequel, but keeps too many of the same story elements to keep this from feeling fresh. The narrative is rushed much of the time, robbing the audience of engaging background development, creating shallow connections with characters who could otherwise be impactful and distressing. The acting is great, with Fanny Leander Bornthal carrying the production in a convincingly tormented and stressed manner, delivering the necessary relatable emotions to draw us into the story. And because this is a mystery at its core, it's discouraging that the plotlines are predictable, missing out on misdirection and twists. This isn't a bad sequel, but it does pale in effectiveness and enjoyment when it's compared to the original film. There's a little sex, no nudity, a lot of profanity, and some violence. I give Nightwatch, Demons Are Forever, 3 out of 5 couches. So have you seen any great thrillers lately? I'd love to hear about what you watched in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.